Welcome back to Harbaugh. Barney Frank may now officially be a former congressman, but he's not done with Washington, at least for a little while. He's made it very clear he's eyeing an interim appointment to fill Senator John Kerry's seat for a few months until a special election up there in Massachusetts. Well, take a look at what he said on Morning Joe this past Friday.
Would you consider possibly being future Senator Barney Frank if the governor calls you and says, fill in for a couple of months?
A month ago, no, a few weeks ago, in fact, I said I wasn't interested. It was kind of like you're about to graduate, and they said you got to go to summer school. But that deal now means that February, March, and April are going to be among the most important months in American financial.
So you consider it?
If in fact, no, I'm not going to be coy. It's not anything I've ever been good at. I told the governor that I would now like, frankly, to do that because I would like to be a part of that. It's only a 3-month period. I wouldn't want to do anything more. I don't want to run again.
Well, the 32-year House of Representatives veteran is the favorite choice of many progressives. Both MoveOn.org and the Progressive Change Campaign Committee have begun online petitions to urge Governor Deval Patrick to pick him. And the Boston Globe backed him in an editorial Monday, quote, more than almost anyone in the Senate, Frank knows where potential savings can be found. If Frank were able to play a role simply in framing the debate over budget cuts, he'd be making a greater contribution than most appointed senators make even in far longer terms. What contribution does he want to make in the 4 to 5 months left he could be in office? Former Congressman Barney Frank joins us now. You amaze me, Congressman. I thought you were going to be doing what we're doing here after you left the Congress, but there you are talking up the Senate seat.
I expect a good look. As recently as the last week in December, people said, would you take the Senate seat? I said, gee, if you're offered something like that, it'd be kind of rude to the people you've represented to say, no, but I hope I'm not offered it. I didn't want it. And then I literally changed my mind sitting in the caucus and realizing it's going to be equivalent in some ways to the New Deal. The debt limit issue comes up and the sequester. There are conservatives who are going to try to use that to cut Social Security, cut Medicare. They're going to try and shift the cuts that we have said we're going to make out of the military, protect the military, keep that, in fact, even further inflated beyond what our national security needs are, and make cuts in the environment and housing and transportation. And I just believe that I'm better prepared, having just done what I've done, to do this. It's not that I'd be the best interim senator ever, just that in these particular circumstances, with very complex issues as a kind of a continuation, I'm there. And I do believe that it's very important for us to go after them, for example, on this phony, irresponsible issue on the debt limit, and to defend Social Security and Medicare, the two most successful anti-poverty programs in American history. At a time when people talk about, oh, we've got too much inequality, the notion that you would increase inequality by weakening them in these critical ways is nuts. And in further, I mean, I had some unhappiness when I heard about Chuck Hagel's remarks from 14 years ago, which I didn't remember. But now the question is, he's the man who's going to help us withdraw from Afghanistan and reduce the military. And I'm very encouraged by that. My one criticism of the president was he wasn't going far enough in reducing the military. I think people now understand that it's either keeping troops in NATO or cutting Medicare. And I think the American people are on the side of Medicare.
If Hagel gets confirmed, do you think you could help him do the job of reforming over there at the Pentagon and saving some money?
Yes, I think I could. Well, in the first few months, I won't be there long enough, even if I get it. But the job there is to run interference for him. By the way, one of the things that I think, there's some basic politics you understand, Chris. Cutting existing weapon systems with all the web of contracts out there can be hard. But what you can do is not start new ones. It's a lot easier to block projects that shouldn't be done going forward than to start them. And I certainly will be there if I hope he's going to continue to support the notion of an early withdrawal from Afghanistan, not keep 20,000 troops there forever at a cost of billions. And finally, I think it's time to re-examine a nuclear deterrent, which we still maintain basically at the strength we needed to defeat a fully nuclear-armed Soviet Union, and the troops in Europe. I misspoke when I said pull the troops out of NATO. I want us to stay in NATO, but let the Western European nations be the ones that keep the troops in Western Europe. Let's have a genuine cooperation, not a very one-sided deal where America gives, frankly, all of our wealthy allies a free ride.
Do you think we can go in the direction we seem to be going? I mean, you follow this more than I do. The whole idea of drones and avoiding big commitments of ground troops, but winning the wars by knocking out the bad guys with rockets going through their windows with their names on them. Is that a good way for Americans to fight the wars without people, but with high tech?
A better way is not to fight wars we shouldn't fight. I was just reading today an article. I was a day or two behind in the paper, and I was reading some foreign policy pundit saying, well, America's got to figure out how can we control the situation in Syria without putting boots on the ground, i.e. troops. The answer is we can't control the situation in Syria. I wish we could, but this notion that it is somehow America's responsibility or opportunity, whatever you want to call it, to intervene in every crisis everywhere makes no sense. And I'm not an isolationist. I guess to be doing more in international economic cooperation, helping Haiti, fighting AIDS internationally. But there is a gross exaggeration of what we can do. This is not 1947, 48, when we were the sole survivor. So the answer is we should not be engaged militarily in nearly as many places. And let me just briefly, Chris, we make this mistake. The military is great at keeping bad things from happening, but the military can't make good things happen. We have too often used our military to try to make good things happen in societies foreign to us, and it never works out.
Do you ever think through what we're talking about? We talk about countries like Syria, Libya. We say Secretary Clinton does a fine job of saying we call on Bashar Assad to compromise with the rebels, to include them in whatever. You're basically asking the guy to commit suicide. You're asking the guy to give up so the rebels can drag him through the states, find him in a sewer, whatever. What does it mean when we say to a government we don't like, we think you should give up? Don't we have to have an alternative plan for these bad guys?
No.
Like, okay, Gaddafi, we'll let you go stay in sandals down in somewhere in the Caribbean for the rest of your life. Or what are we asking them to do? I went to Assad this week. He's not giving up.
First of all, Chris, it's not up to us. I mean, we can express our opinion. This is part of this problem that it's somehow America's capability and responsibility to resolve it. Look, I wish that we could go into a lot of these places and make things work well. I wish we could bring democracy and peace, but I wish I could eat more and not gain weight. And I have found that when I act on unrealistic wishes, the results are not so good. And the answer is we can voice our opinion. I guess what we ought to encourage is a deal whereby people like that who are in power can leave, not because they're good people, but because the alternative is them fighting to stay. But my basic point is that in any case, we haven't got a lot to say about it. And you have this notion. Well, look, here's my disagreement with President Obama on this one issue, because I think he does an extraordinarily good job and a very, very supportive. He says America is the indispensable nation, by which they mean that we got to be everywhere there's trouble. We can't do it. We can't afford it anymore. It's not our obligation to do it while wealthier nations are sitting back. And given the resentment of America and a whole range of other things, we often wind up, despite good intentions, and I think we often have, doing more harm than good. I don't want to be the indispensable nation. I think there are parts of the world that have got to learn to dispense with us.
Don't retire. Barney, don't retire. I love it. You say what I think. Thank you so much. Congressman Barney Frank, retired so far. We'll see if he gets the Senate appointment.